So thank you, Candidate Christmas, for doing this interview with us today at
Of course.
Rights Louisiana. We're doing this interview series so that people with disabilities in New Orleans can have an informed vote when they go to the polls.
Mm-hmm.
We really do appreciate your time.
Of course, of course.
So before I get started with my questions, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself and the district that you're running for?
Yeah, so my name is Danyelle Christmas. Of course, I'm running for City Council District E, so that consists of the Lower Ninth Ward and New Orleans East.
Great. And so, um, my first question deals with infrastructure. So, what steps would you take to make New Orleans infrastructure and public spaces more accessible to all residents? And how would you ensure that residents with disabilities are at the table when decisions are being made about the city's built environments?
Well, one, that's a great question. I love that question. Honestly, we have to bring the Department of Public Works to the table and hold them accountable and call them out and say, hey, we have issues with sidewalks. We have issues with streets not being done. Infrastructure is failing. So we have to hold them accountable and give them a seat at the table and say, hey, what can we do to better fix this? And then also community-based organizations who are the forefront for people with disabilities. Bring them and give them a seat at the table too and ask them, hey, what can we do better? Get Department of Public Works and get the organizations on the same page in the same room and say, hey, what do you guys need from us? And I think we can, just go from there and give you guys a seat at the table and say, okay, I need this, can you do this? Can you deliver on this? And I think we can fix a lot of issues if we bring you guys to the forefront.
Yes. And how would you support economic opportunity for residents with disabilities? And what steps would you take to ensure that jobs across the city, including city jobs and contracts, are truly inclusive and equitable?
Well, so one thing city council can't do is we can't do anything for minimum wages and stuff like that, or we can't change certain laws, but we can improve you guys and advocate for you to unionize. We can teach you classes on unionizing. Everyone has a right to unionize in the workplace. So we, give you guys the information, bring it to you, say, hey, you can unionize and you can advocate to get this in your district, or you can get this at your workplace. This over here, I can help you do that. So just teaching them how to organize and to unionize. Because if you unionize, like I said, everyone has a right to unionize. So if you unionize, then the people you're working for has to comply. Yeah.
Great. And what is your vision for ensuring that residents with disabilities can access safe, affordable, and accessible housing in every neighborhood of the city? And
Oh
how,
yeah, that's true. Go
and
ahead.
further on, how would you address both affordability and physical accessibility?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. I'm multitasking. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
What is your vision for ensuring that disabled residents can access safe, affordable, and accessible housing in every neighborhood of the city? And how would you address both affordability and accessibility in housing policy?
Yeah, so one thing I would do is affordable housing. Affordable housing is a huge issue. So one thing that I'm pushing for is creating a rent cap. So the rent cap would say, hey, if you live in this particular district or you live in this particular area, you make a certain amount of money, right? So I know the lower ninth ward especially, they make less than $29,000 annually. So if we create a rent cap based on where they live, same thing as New Orleans East, they make about $44,000, right? We all know the average income needs to be at least $55,000 for a single person in order to sustain a livable wage. So we create a rent cap that way you can afford the rest of your bills. I can afford the energy bill, I can afford the water bill, I can pay for my groceries. We can do that. and it'll tackle the affordability crisis that we're in right now. But another issue that I want to talk about, bring to the forefront. So the city council created the Healthy Homes Ordinance. We could do that again. So it only 2% goes to us, but we can increase that 2%. But what it does is it puts money toward the Healthy Homes Ordinance where the landlords have to comply. So there's a certificate, right? So if I become a landlord, I have to provide smoke detectors. I have to provide what is it, the fire extinguishers. So if we do something similar to that for people with disabilities, I don't think there should be an issue. They have to comply. That way you don't get a slumlord, or you have accessible. Say if you're in a wheelchair, you have accessibility to your garage or your home. So it's just simple, honestly. It's not hard. It's not rocket science. We just have to allocate the money to where it needs to go. Too many times we prioritize cars, people with a lot of money, and not everyday people who suffer with disabilities, everyday people, older people, kids, and things like that. And we tend to overlook them. But again, it's not hard. It's not rocket science. We just have to allocate the money to go towards it. So again, create an ordinance with that. Putting you guys at the forefront, asking what you need, creating an ordinance that say, hey, you need to comply with this if you want to be a landlord. You need to comply with this. That way I can give you accessibility. You don't have to worry about that.
So, this brings me to my fourth question. How would you work to expand access to mental health care in New Orleans, particularly community-based services?
Yes.
And what role do you see the city playing in preventing incarceration of people with mental health conditions?
Oh my goodness, I love this question just because I am a victim of this myself. My father suffered with addiction because of the incarceration system. He was charged, he was falsely and wrongfully convicted of a murder charge he didn't commit. He spent 10 years in jail most of his life because he was wrongfully convicted. So incarceration is very dear to me. Drug abuse is very dear to me because he had to deal with the ghost of Katrina, the ghost of Angola, because they had failed him in the incarceration system, the justice system, and mental health. So the issue that we have is he ended up passing away to a drug overdose. And the cop ended up telling me, he was like, this is the lower ninth ward, nobody cares. He's like, nobody won't come here. And in that moment, I already knew, but it opened my eyes to we have lack of resources based on where we live, and we don't take mental health seriously. And too many times they tend to solve the problem by over incarceration when that's not the solution. We need more mental health services. We need more community centers. So one thing I want to do is allocate the money, allocate the budget. And the city council has a $1.8 billion budget. There's no way we can't allocate some of the money to community health centers. We can bring more resources, hold a resource fair. Say, hey, we have these community centers in the area. We're going to host this event. Come see what we have, give out resources and things like that. Also, we can't create our own community health centers, but we can allocate money for it. We can donate to it. We can do what we can. So I think, like I said, bringing community health centers to the forefront, bringing rehabilitation centers to the forefront. I know Ricky Twiggs, he is a mental health. He is a therapist. He's running for mayor. And one thing I loved, he had opened up a practice, gearing towards mental health. And he's the only one that has the education in mental health that's running for mayor. He mentioned community health centers. Put a lot more of them on the forefront because he knows how to treat. Because a lot of the times these kids are acting up because they haven't had a meal and they're upset or mental health. So stop over policing. That's another issue. We don't need over policing because we're going to continue to incarcerate. And we all know this is a for-profit system with the incarceration system. you know, what we can also do is, and one thing I want to push for, again, allocate the money. We don't need over policing in the area. We can work with third party systems, people who are trained and educated to help with people with mental health crisis. Like I said, I think I already told you, my son has autism. He's only 4 years old, but he's gonna get bigger. So he's 4 feet tall at 5. So at some point he's gonna reach like 6'3", 6'4", And if he has an outburst, I don't want to call the police and say my son's having an outburst because guess what? He might be shot and killed. Even though I'm the one making the phone call. So again, hire a third party system, people who are trained in these areas, who are trained in mental health, and call them that way they know how to de-escalate the situation and to get them the help that they properly need and give them resources and calm them down and say, hey, we'll take you here, instead of taking you to an incarceration facility, because we all know that doesn't work. But again, it's a for-profit system. So again, stop over policing, allocate the money for community health centers, bring them to the forefront. have an event, give out resources, hire a third party. That way they can come instead of calling 911. They can help. There's many ways that we can do this. We just choose not to. It's going on in Baltimore right now. We just have to do it here. It's not hard.
Yeah. And this goes along the similar lines. As we know, people in our communities need health care and things like Medicaid. So, what would you do to support Medicaid funding? Um, or let me restate this. How would you advocate for more equitable access to Medicaid and other health care supports for re residents with disabilities? And what types of policies would you support or oppose?
Well, I think one thing, so on a local level, we can't really do much about Medicaid, especially what's going on the federal level right now. It's being gutted. So there's not much that we can do about Medicaid, but we can ensure that they have access to it. We can, create phone lines or create, again, an organization or an ordinance to say, hey, do you need health care? I can make it easier for you. Here's this phone number, and they can sign up for Medicaid for you. So that's pretty much all that we can do is just resources. Give them resources, make it easier for them. So, hey, you can call this number. We've created this phone number. Call them. We have people that can come out and apply for you if you can't come and do it yourself. So again, it's all about money. Money, and I continue to say this because it is. We can allocate the budget. It's a $1.8 billion budget for a reason. Put it where it needs to go. Don't prioritize what you want to prioritize. Prioritize people. So again, create a third party system. Call this phone number if you need help getting Medicaid or Medicare. We have people that can come out and do it for you. So on a local level, that's what we can do. Hire a third party system. They can come out and help you apply for these services.
Great. So that is all for my questions. But before I stop the recording, is there anything else that I didn't touch upon that you'd like to add?
I think we kind of touched upon it. I do want to say infrastructure is huge, but we did talk about that with the Department of Public Works. So I think we talked about that in accessibility. So I don't think I have any questions.
Great.
But I do want to say thank you for, putting this on and speaking to me about it. I do appreciate it because we don't have enough advocates, especially with people with disabilities. Because I know when my son was first diagnosed, I had no clue how to navigate it. No clue at all. And it was so difficult. So I appreciate you for doing this. It is really nice.
Yeah, no, thank you for doing this with us. And we're always a resource to yourself and to other community members if something
Yeah.
comes up in the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right. I think that's everything. Do you have any questions for me?